So suffering is created when we believe things that therefore become the lens with which we interpret thoughts through. And so we think thoughts that feel awful to think, and that feeling is an indication of the presence of the belief. But we never look back at that lens in belief of the thought. So imagine that there are some very, very strong religious beliefs, and this makes up the worldview for somebody. You know, they have beliefs of being an individual, and so these religious beliefs are their hope for the future. They are what hold fear of death at bay, so they don't have to see it or face it, and they also help when things aren't going well. They can just understand that they are doing things right and they are good. And so there's all these beliefs around being a person and future and death, and then there's these religious beliefs which also help to avoid some of the more uncomfortable thoughts that might come up. So then they're presented with or come up with a thought, or just suddenly a thought happens that they start to doubt, or somebody else maybe out in the world challenges this belief. They're going to feel a lot of discord with that thought. And so what happens is there's a reaction. And so the reaction is in believing the thought, and therefore all kinds of different actions may be taken, and sometimes extreme revenge, or sometimes leaving the situation, or sometimes watching Netflix, or finding something to eat, or doubling down on the beliefs, something like that. But when nothing is done, the belief has the opportunity to come out and to be seen. And so we believe that there are things out there. So we're looking at interpreting thoughts, possibilities, objects, people, and so there's me and there's this. There's the subject and there's the object. And what's lost and what's forgotten is the lens through which it's seen. And so beliefs are what create that lens. So feeling is not just a sense, and there's kind of a pointer to this if you look at the five senses. So all of the other five supposed senses. So all of the other four senses have some sort of physical feature as being responsible for. So if you don't have eyes, then you're not capable of sight. If your eardrums are damaged or destroyed, you're not capable of hearing. And then, with taste and smell, I think you can have certain head injuries and lose those. But feeling is a sense that although we can have numbness, even in paralysis, they just feel very differently. Feeling really isn't a sense, and if you think about art or you think about music, it's feeling very much is there, the resonance with the beauty, the colors. Every color evokes a feeling. That's part of art, is that you can art and home decorating, and that you can decorate things to evoke certain feelings. We have the cool colors, which generally evoke calmness, and the hot colors, which are more invigorating, etc. So there's feeling, and that is the kind of where things are led to, where they're no longer dualistic. So thought is dualistic, and it's not just the surface thought. there might be a belief underneath that thought, almost like you have leaves on a tree and you chase it back to the core branches or the trunk of the tree. So the thought on the surface is, in a way, innocent. It's just when we totally skip over and turn that thought into subject object and forget the feeling and don't use the feeling to look at the beliefs, where we fall into patterns of suffering and patterns to avoid that suffering. So I want to say that it's key to take time, but more accurately, it's just not being so quick to believe things and to very much notice when you do that it feels awful to do so. And so then just taking a moment. And it can be a great help to take time in nature, meditation, have some kind of journaling practice. It can help, but this is very much done on the fly. And even when things are really, really busy and really crazy, it's almost as if it comes up just as much or more. And there's always a second to take a pause. And we might find that we aren't wasting so much time when we really take a minute to align with what's wanted and see clearly what's there, instead of having it filtered through the beliefs. So the funny thing is that ultimately there can be a belief in beliefs. So it's not some sort of tactic that a person can do to kind of like purify themselves and go on some sort of conquest to get rid of all their beliefs. It's much more tricky and much more fluid than that. And so you think for the matter of speech, one thought at a time, and this is why it can be so powerful to express thoughts. Because when we verbally say thoughts, we're putting them in line and we're putting them out there. Not that there's an in here, but it becomes apparent when they're on a computer screen or on paper in front of us, whether we're writing them or speaking them. Things become apparent that weren't before when they were held. I reached maximum recording time. So things become apparent, and sometimes they can be really off the wall, like we see a double meaning in a word and there's some kind of connection, or we see what we think were random disjointed thoughts and that there was some symbolism pointing back to the big question we had, and then that random funny occurrence. So when we journal things out, it, rather than kind of holding it in this kind of like mucky, vague identification, kind of like making up ourselves kind of way, but not really looking at it, if that makes any sense, we can see the light, we can see the clarity through it. So there really isn't any particular technique, just don't be so willing to believe everything. That's it.